Welcome to Millennium Counseling Center's podcast, where each week we go in depth into all things mental health, addiction recovery, and being our healthiest and happiest self. Enjoy. Okay, Derek, good to see you, man.
Good to see you as well.
Okay, well, lots going on, and just wanted to connect on just some things that I'm hearing going on in our athlete wellness program and how you guys are navigating kind of summertime, as well as really kind of just try to kind of continue to let people know about the strategy and the uniqueness of how we approach student athletes and individuals that are kind of performing at a really high level, like from a skill perspective in a sport, and how we're supporting them, like at a club level, collegiate level, professional level. Like how are we doing that, and why are people coming in, or what are they doing, or what are they concentrating on when they come in, and kind of what ultimately ends up being the thing that helps the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we identified this 9 or 10 years ago when we created the program, that there are some unique ways to work with athletes, and there's some unique things that are, kind of that are prevalent in athletics that, are a little bit different than, somebody who's not in that position. I think over the time, we've seen many pro athletes, college athletes, people have come out talking about the different aspects of mental health and, the importance of that. And so you see that even the way the NCAA has handled, they've created criteria for mental health support for the athletes. And there's been just a movement of people in athletics to move towards more counseling and that type of care. And I think so, one of the challenges that we've had over time is that there is since this is somewhat of a newer concept, there's always been the concept of treating performance, right? You're not performing in a certain way. You're a goalie, you get a goalie coach, you need to figure out how to get more motivated for games. There's people who do that specifically and are very good at that and have been helpful for years with that. I think the piece that is newer is, I think, kind of treating the full spectrum of what may be going on with a person and having the ability to address, kind of individualized things that are going on with them personally, as well as being able to see the relation that has towards performance and team environments and relationships with coaches and, those types of things. So I think, part of what we've needed to do is try to help educate people to understand the importance of why this all matters. But then, what we've seen is this has been the fastest growing division we've ever had at Millennium, right? We see that there are a lot of people out there who are finding great benefit from this, college athletes, club athletes, high school athletes, who are seeing that, now, wait a minute, look, if I look into this type of service where I'm, and with us, we're primarily former high level athletes who are now therapists and counselors. So we understand the nuances of being a high level athlete, while at the same time realizing what the correlation is between that and some of the things that we might think have nothing to do with athletics, but they have everything to do with performance and also just how we're experiencing life during that time.
Yeah. So maybe what most student athletes at the younger level would say is, I'm struggling in this skill area, right? Or not performing in this way. And that's more of the conditioned reason to call, right? Reason to reach out. What do you find now over kind of this amount of time we're working with athletes? Where does that end up going, right? And then kind of how does that ultimately kind of change the trajectory of how that person is looking at their mental health, looking at their overall wellness as it relates to not just them as a person, but them as a highly skilled athlete?
You look at what people would say they're struggling with. To your point, sometimes they're struggling with a very specific skill set, but sometimes they're struggling with something that's a little more difficult to, as a soccer player, if you're struggling with your shooting, then the answer has always been, go practice shooting. And that's not wrong, right? That's one of the ways you can do that. But when you get into some of the things that are a little more complicated, like somebody is struggling getting motivated, somebody is struggling to get along with their teammates, somebody is struggling to, be able to communicate with their coach. Those things that are affecting their experience with their sport, and they're not really sure why. And the answer has usually been just try harder, just do more, try harder. And that, like I said, as an old school guy, that I love that answer. But at the end of the day, what we see is that many times it is more complicated than that. And it may be about, kind of other relationships in their life. It might be some sort of identifiable mental health aspect, whether it's depression or anxiety or, or circumstantial things in their lives. And so, although, like I said, I love the answer of hard work. That can be frustrating if that is your answer over and over and you're not seeing the change in what you are looking for. And so I think that one of the things that I think that our clients would say is that they are playing whatever they're playing because of a love for that game or for competition or for being in sports. And in many times we're able to help them rediscover the love that they have for that sport. Well, at the same time, often, performing at a much higher level, but just generally speaking, that the connection between how people are doing mentally and what's going on in their lives away from the field highly affects their experience at the field or court.
Yeah. So I'm an athlete. I call in. I want to, have a higher service percentage, or I've lost 5 matches in a row and I feel kind of defeated. You know, Once I kind of break down what's happening in my life with a Millennium counselor that's been there, like, I'm not just looking at it from a wins and loss perspective or a serving perspective. I'm looking at it in terms of just how I'm doing overall, which then makes those other things kind of easier to attain.
Yeah. And if you call in and tell me that's what's going on with you, and I tell you I have the answer, that's a problem because I don't know what that answer is yet. Right. Like, so if I sit there and say, oh, all you need to do is X, Y, and Z because you're having trouble serving, if I'm telling you that I know what the solution to this is, then to me, as an athlete or a parent or a coach, that would be concerning because there's many reasons of why that could be the thing that you're seeing, the tangible piece of this that you're seeing on the outside. And so what I think that we do really well is we look at what all the possible factors could be in that through talking to you, through working with you, through meeting with you. And then we're able to kind of pick out some things. And I think that that's something that we do exceptionally well is because there's a whole array of reasons why you could be getting these symptoms of things, the things that are showing up that you would identify as a problem. I think what we're really good at doing is identifying really what are the ones that we can work on that will be most impactful so that you will because ideally what happens is if we can make some impact on the tangible things, then the person feels like we're heading in the right direction. If you come in, even if you come in and you and I are talking about something that has nothing to do with serving, but then when you start going back to practice, you're serving the ball, you may not understand how those two things are connected or how they're correlated. But if you're serving better, then you say, okay, so since I started going to talking to Derek, my serving's going better and I'm not spending any more time serving the ball. I'm just getting better at that once people can see their, what I refer to as personal historical data, once they start to realize that what they're doing right now in their life is affecting that, then that gives us the ability to kind of really go and do and kind of dig in deeper and then really, kind of maximize that. I think athletes, the mental aspect of sports is on a spectrum. And you see it like across the board. Either someone performs better than their actual skill set because they are mentally tough and sharp and strong. So the mental aspect helps their performance. There are other people where the mental aspect hurts their performance, where it is that they on paper are better at what they do than what they're performing, and what's going on internally is affecting that. So wherever you are on the spectrum, right? There's always going to, if the goal is to perform at the highest level possible and enjoy what you're doing and feel good about what you're doing, There's value. I don't care where you are on the spectrum. If we can move further towards, if we can move closer towards where it's helping you and where it's giving you an advantage or it's helping you do better, then that's always going to be worthwhile and something that will have value if the identified goal is to, kind of play at our highest level possible.
Yeah. As a consumer of sports, as a parent, as somebody that watches it, and obviously within Millennium supporting athletes, you know, I would say that the stress that is put onto the environment of sports has changed. And I think that that's felt across the board, right? Whether or not you are on, you said, on one end of the spectrum of being able to handle it versus another end of the spectrum struggling with it. I think stress, high levels of stress is just kind of the new reality for youth sports through college. And, obviously once you become a professional, right? I mean, that's kind of a little bit of a different story, but like, club level, high school level, college level, the stress is very real. And I think that like realizing the connection between the emotional management of stress and other mental health challenges that come with just life in general and your specific skill set, I just think has a ton of value. And kind of even looking at my own kids and their like how much time they spend on the skill versus how much they spend on kind of trying to be in the best place mentally, it's a major discrepancy, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I just think that the idea that there's some ratio, like for 10 hours of physical activity, you spend 1 hour in a mental activity, or whatever the balance is, that there has to be at least some kind of a one somewhere, whether it's every 10 hours, every 100 hours, whatever it is, there still needs to be some emphasis and time spent on how we're doing while we're doing something hard.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, right? You said that the stress that comes with athletics, right? Whether it's high school, club, college, pro, that has increased. And you're exactly right. Over the years, that has increased. But in the background, what else has increased is the stress on school, the stress on, getting into the best place you can and getting all A's and to be well liked by your peers. Like the stress of all of these things has been exaggerated, and part of that is access, right? Social media. Now, if you are a star athlete, there are going to be more people. If you're a star high school athlete, there are going to be more people in your school that know you are a star high school athlete. If you're a star college athlete, more people are going to know because there's so much access to that information. But what comes with that is stress, right? And so these things are attached to in an effort to try to give all of our kids the best lives possible. What we have said is, look, these things need to be important to you, and we need to show you that they're important. But what that comes is with that weight, right? It comes with the weight of when it's important. You're saying it's a priority, but the hard part about this is they're all the priority. Doing well in school is a priority. Getting along with kind of friends and family is important, right? Being a hard worker is important. Being good at your sport is important. So I think that it's not just, kind of focused just on whatever they're doing from a performance standpoint. It's across the board, all of those things. And the expectation that people would know how to handle that and what that looks like and how to navigate through that is, we see it on in every aspect of life, right? That more people are finding and looking for support as a way to deal through these different areas because they don't know what that is. It's confusing and it's frustrating and it's annoying. And so I think just the importance of being able to find people who understand that and who know what that looks like and who really understand the added stress of playing athletics. What that does to us, right, is invaluable because which is part of the reason why we have, we've heavily as a group invested in finding former athletes or people who have worked extensively with athletes so that there's a genuine understanding of what that looks like. And it's not, we didn't read about it in a book and we didn't guess it, what that must be like. Like, we've experienced it and we've been there. And so we don't need to spend a lot of time explaining what that is because it's, it's kind of like the, if you know, you know.
Yeah. I would say, a big part of my caseload is working with high level executives CEOs, doctors, lawyers. And what's interesting about the parallels is they have a very specific skill set that they work
Mhm.
very hard, and that has kind of convinced them that they're very good at things, but they're very good at the thing that
Yeah.
they've been working on in their
Mhm.
specific thing, right? It doesn't mean that they're great at marriages. It doesn't mean they're great at mental health. It doesn't mean that they're great at taking care of themselves. And so, but they're really not likely to reach out for help because they're very good at something that has made them successful. But when you kind of look more holistically, right, it's like, hey, these are areas that are a challenge for you that you could use some outside support with, even though this one thing you're better than 99.9% of the world. But in all of these other things, there are rooms for support. And so I kind of see those parallels, right? Like if you are better than 98% of the world at X because and in your sport, great. But all these other elements, right? And that kind of convinces you that you can take on everything and you can manage it all. But there are these other areas, right? That like if you get the support, it just only just makes everything else run so much more like healthy and efficiently, and quality of life just dramatically improves.
Yeah, and there is a huge parallel in what you're just talking about, right? If we look at just, in society, what are we people who are good at anything, people are really good at anything, we respect that, right? We know it's hard to be really good at things. And so whatever that is, whether it's a specific work, whether it's music, whether it's sports, whether it's at work, whether it's making TikTok, whatever it is, if you're really good at it, then that elevates the idea of you as being a successful person. And to your point, that doesn't really mean anything about the other areas. You may very well be good at all those other things, and you also may struggle in certain areas, and most of us do. Most of us struggle in some other areas. Even if we're world class in one thing, we will struggle in some of the others. So finding the support for that, making sure people have the resources, we want to continue to try to find what that looks like and make sure it's available.